Let me ask you this question. What was the first book you remember reading as a child? Or maybe a parent was reading that book to you. It could be you have a collection of books lying around like this one here. This was one I remember as a kid being read either by my teacher or sometimes looking through the pictures in it and seeing what was inside the book itself. And this book here had an interesting plot line, made up characters and some fun rhymes that Dr. Seuss would put together. But what was the first book that you ever remember reading as a child? The truth is, whatever that book is, all books have a plot line or a storyline. Now, I can tell you that on occasion I've sat down with my granddaughter Jovi and I've read a book to her. I have done that for the past year and a half. And when I sit down with a book and read the book to her, there are times when she will just open the pages, and a lot of times she'll take the pages and turn them backwards, not knowing that the story is going this way instead of this way. And so she'll look at the pages and walk through, and sometimes we'll jabber. And then other times she'll look at the book, put it down, and just get off the couch and go do something else. And it seems like later in life we graduate to larger and thicker books with deeper plot lines like this, but every one of these books has a plot. All of these stories have a plot that goes somewhere. Now, it could be that you've been sitting in, reading a book or sitting through a movie, and the plot line doesn't feel like it goes anywhere. I've sat through a few movies, and at the end, I'm thinking, that's it? That's the end? And I think there's a condition right now that we're in because we have been weeks, now into months, in dealing with COVID, and our habits and our worship rhythms are changing in such a way that it makes us uncomfortable. We're doing our very best to deliver content like this online to you, and that's a good thing, but it's not the complete picture. Let me explain it this way. Have you ever listened to someone tell a story, or have you ever read a book and listened to the story and just put it down and never picked the book back up again, or stopped listening to the person who is telling the story? Well, sometimes we just think, where's this story going? What's happening in the story? Our minds are constantly saying, where's this story going? And as we look into our present circumstances today, we realize that we don't really know what the moves are going to be made by the city or the government or local worshiping communities over the next few days or the next few months. There was even a church in Atlanta that canceled corporate worship services till January of 2021. And he did that just so that we can stop delaying this sense of time. We feel like the plot is just moving and the characters are constantly changing. And with that comes a sense of fatigue. We do say to ourselves, when is this going to be over? And by this time now, we're really saying, well, I've been saying, when is this going to be over and over again? And I really don't know when this story is going to end. All that said, I do think many times we are fatigued in our mind because we don't know where the story is going. We can't see the bigger picture. We can't see our place in the historical timeline or even the salvation history timeline of God's story. In moments like these, it's challenging for us to even consider that we are part of some kind of story. It just seems like the story is just messed up. Why do I bring up Green Eggs and Ham, and why do I bring up Charles Dickens' novel? Well, it's because whether it's a thin book like this one or a longer story like this one, in between there is conflict. Between the beginning of the story and the end of the story, there's a lot of conversation, there are a lot of characters that develop, and there's tension, there's conflict. And we, my friends, right now are just in the middle of this tension and conflict in the world in which we live. God put this world into existence in the very beginning, and one day our hope is that we will see Jesus face to face. But in the meantime, we have to find ways to stand for Christ so that we offer his grace and strength to others. And Stephen, in his sermon, his final words, speaks of the characters of Abraham and Moses and David as a reminder and encouragement to others that what they had been waiting for was here. Jesus was here, and they couldn't see it. I think the same thing happens to us. We see so much chaos or disorganization or frustration around in our world, and we fail in the middle of conflict and the plot line to see Jesus for who he is. Like a kid's book or like the Charles Dickens novel, there's a story that begins and a story that ends. Well, how do we do this? How do we not grow weary in doing good? Well, there are three things. One is, make sure you Sabbath properly. The Sabbath was given to us so that we can worship God one day a week. That means everything stops. It doesn't look like any other day. It doesn't look like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Saturday. Things just stop. We do things differently at a different pace. God set the example for us and himself in the creation of the world, and we too are to use that so that our bodies can rest, our minds and our hearts and our soul can move from fatigue to finding strength. And then sleeping properly. Some of you may be so worried about the circumstances around you that you're just not sleeping well. If you Sabbath well and trust God and give him your life and that day of the week to reflect on his goodness and grace, you're going to sleep better, my friends. And in addition to that, understand that we are in the middle of a story. We're in the middle of the story. It had a beginning, and my friends, be encouraged by this. It has a conclusion. One day we will see Jesus face to face, and he will look at us and say to us, if we've been faithful, well done, good and faithful servant. And then he will offer us a rest. My friends, you are part of a great story. Not a story like this one, nor like this one, but we are part of the scriptural narrative of God's faithfulness to his people. He will be faithful. This will all be over, and there will be no more dying, no more tears, no more crying. And the Apostle Paul says that we are supposed to speak these words of hope to one another, to encourage each other as we see that day approaching. And that day is when Jesus returns a second time for us, his people. You can do this. I know you're tired, I know you're fatigued, but we can do this together. Remember, we're part of a story, the story and greatest story of all, God's story. We're in the middle of a chapter turn, and soon we will see Jesus face to face, and it will be a wonderful day. But do not grow weary. Do not lose heart. Continue to trust God. Continue to trust in Christ and follow his paths for you. God bless you.